Young Waitress offered her sandwich to a little girl. Didn't know her father was a millionaire. And, hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. It was a crisp, late afternoon in downtown Chicago. The golden light of the setting sun reflecting off the wet sidewalks after a light rain. Inside a small, bustling cafe on the corner of Lake Street, Mia Reynolds wiped down the last few tables, her apron smudged with coffee stains, and her shoes scuffed from hours of standing. She was only 22, working her way through college, and every shift felt like an endurance test, but she took pride in doing her best. Her eyes scanned the small crowd of regulars and a few new faces when her gaze fell upon a little girl, no older than 7, sitting alone on a bench outside the large window. The child's jacket was too thin for the chilly breeze, and she clutched a small, worn backpack tightly, shivering slightly. Without a second thought, Mia grabbed her lunch, a simple turkey sandwich wrapped in wax paper, and stepped outside, careful to avoid puddles. "Hey, sweetie," she called softly, kneeling down to meet the girl at eye level. "You look cold. Would you like to share my sandwich?" The little girl looked up with wide, uncertain eyes and nodded slowly, a small hesitant smile breaking across her face. Mia unwrapped the sandwich, offering half, and the girl took it gingerly, her hands trembling slightly. As they ate in silence, a warmth spread through the otherwise chilly afternoon, a moment of quiet connection amidst the city's noise. Mia glanced down at the girl's tiny hands and the frayed edges of her backpack, sensing the hardships this child might be facing. She felt a pang of protectiveness, an instinctive desire to help without needing anything in return. The girl's eyes sparkled as she bit into the sandwich, her gratitude unspoken but clear. Just as Mia was about to ask her name, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb, and a sharply dressed man stepped out, exuding a quiet authority and presence that made heads turn as he approached. He knelt beside the little girl, a warm smile spreading across his face as he gently ruffled her hair. "There you are, Lily," he said softly, his voice calm but commanding. Mia froze for a moment, realizing the contrast between the child she had just helped and this confident man. She kept her gaze respectfully low, unsure of whether to step back or continue to engage. The man's eyes flicked briefly toward her, curious yet polite, before returning to Lily, and Mia noticed the faint glimmer of a watch and cufflinks, subtle indicators of wealth she didn't yet understand. In that instant, a seed of curiosity and wonder planted itself in her mind, the quiet thought that perhaps this small act of kindness could ripple further than she ever imagined. The breeze picked up, carrying with it the scent of rain and the city, and Mia felt a flutter of anticipation, a whisper of change in the air, as if the universe had nudged her into this exact moment for a reason. She smiled gently at the little girl, who looked up at her with trusting eyes, and for the first time that day, Mia felt a spark of hope that her simple gesture might mean more than just a shared sandwich, setting the stage for a story she could never have predicted unfolding just beyond that cafe window. After helping the little girl with her sandwich, Mia Reynolds returned to the cafe, her mind still lingering on the encounter. The golden hour light shifted to a softer orange as the city began to hum with evening traffic and distant sirens. Mia wiped down the counter, trying to shake the lingering warmth of that moment, but she could not help thinking about the child and the man who had just arrived. Who were they? Why was the girl out here alone? Her curiosity mingled with a twinge of worry, and she wondered if she had done enough. Back in the small cafe kitchen, Mia grabbed a fresh cup of coffee, its aroma strong and bitter, grounding her in the reality of her own life. She had classes the next morning, bills to pay, and a shift that would not end until nearly 9 o'clock. Yet despite her own struggles, the memory of the little girl's wide eyes and hesitant smile remained vivid. As she stacked clean plates, a familiar anxiety settled over her. She was just a young waitress, barely making ends meet, and yet she had offered her lunch without hesitation. She had always felt compelled to help when she could, even when her own resources were scarce. But the intensity of this small act left her reflecting on her place in the world. Hours passed in the gentle rhythm of coffee machines and murmured conversations. Mia served a few more customers, smiled through polite interactions, and cleaned the tables again. But her mind kept drifting back to the little girl and the sharply dressed man who had appeared at the curb. She wondered about their story, about what challenges they faced, and about what might happen next. When the evening rush quieted, she stepped outside, leaning against the doorframe, breathing in the cool Chicago air. The streets glimmered with reflections from the wet asphalt, and the city lights began to twinkle against the deepening sky. She noticed a figure across the street observing the cafe, and her pulse quickened slightly. It was the man from earlier, the one who had spoken to the little girl with such warmth and authority. He stood with a calm posture, surveying the scene as if searching for something or someone, and Mia instinctively straightened, uncertain if she should approach or retreat. The figure's eyes met hers for a brief second, and she caught a faint flicker of recognition, though she was not sure whether he had noticed her at all. In that instant, a silent understanding seemed to pass between them. Mia could not yet grasp the significance of the man, but a quiet tension began to build, hinting at the connection that would inevitably unfold. She took a step back, letting him move on, but her mind raced with questions. Who was he really? Why had he arrived in that moment? And what role would the little girl play in the events to come? The streetlights reflected on the glass of the cafe as Mia returned to the interior, her hands still slightly trembling, and she poured herself another cup of coffee. The rich aroma filled the small space, mingling with the fading chatter of the last customers. She glanced at the cash register, the tip jar nearly empty, and reminded herself of the tenuous balance of her own life. Yet, despite her modest circumstances, she felt a quiet pride in having acted with kindness, an act that had set in motion events she could not yet comprehend. The thought lingered in her mind like a whisper, that small gestures, even when unnoticed, could ripple outward and change lives. As the night deepened, Mia closed the cafe, locking the door behind her, and walked toward her small apartment several blocks away. The streets were quiet now, lit by the soft glow of street lamps and the occasional passing car. She reflected on the day, on the little girl, on the stranger who seemed to command both authority and compassion, and she felt a strange mix of anticipation and unease. Something significant had begun with that simple sandwich. Something that would unfold in ways Mia could not yet imagine. The city night wrapped around her like a soft cloak, carrying with it the sense that her life, modest and challenging as it was, had intersected with another story, one of wealth, influence, and unexpected opportunity, and that the choices she made today, however small, would echo in the moments to come, guiding her toward a path she had never anticipated. The next morning, Mia Reynolds awoke to the sound of distant traffic and the faint hum of her old radiator in her small apartment. She stretched and rubbed the sleep from her eyes, her mind still on the little girl and the man from yesterday, wondering if their encounter had been as significant as it felt in that fleeting moment. After a quick breakfast of toast and coffee, she grabbed her coat and stepped out into the crisp Chicago morning, the streets glistening from last night's rain, and the sunlight reflecting off puddles like tiny mirrors scattered across the sidewalks. She headed to the cafe, her steps quick and purposeful, knowing the day would be long but also sensing that something unusual might unfold. As she opened the door and stepped inside, the familiar aroma of brewed coffee and warm bread wrapped around her like a comforting embrace. Yet her eyes immediately searched the cafe floor, half expecting to see the little girl or the man again. The morning rush began gradually, with a few regulars taking their usual spots and a group of students chatting animatedly over lattes. But then the bell above the door chimed and Mia noticed the sharply dressed man from yesterday standing near the entrance, looking slightly out of place yet confident, scanning the room as if he were searching for someone. He caught her gaze for a brief moment and offered a polite nod, and Mia felt a flutter of nervous excitement in her chest, unsure of what to say or do first. Before she could make a move, the little girl, Lily, appeared from around the corner, holding her small backpack and looking up at the man with joy and relief. And Mia watched as the two exchanged a warm greeting, their familiarity apparent, and she realized that this was not a chance encounter, but part of a larger story she was only beginning to understand. The man turned to her with a gentle smile, and spoke with a voice that carried authority yet warmth, introducing himself as Robert Ellison, Lily's father, and explaining that he had been looking for her after seeing the act of kindness the day before, and Mia's heart skipped a beat as she absorbed the revelation, the connection between her simple gesture and the unfolding events becoming clear. Robert invited Mia to sit with them at a small table near the window, offering her a cup of coffee, and as she did, she noticed the subtle luxury in his attire, the craftsmanship of his watch, and the quiet confidence he carried. Yet there was a genuine kindness in his demeanor that made her feel at ease. He asked Lily to tell Mia about her day at school and what she liked, and as the little girl spoke, Mia listened intently, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and protective instinct, realizing that this child's world was intertwined with a life she had never imagined existing beyond the city streets. Robert explained that he had seen Mia's act of generosity the previous afternoon and wanted to thank her personally, offering assistance in ways that Mia had not expected. From opportunities at a foundation, he managed to educational support for Lily, and Mia felt a wave of disbelief, mingled with gratitude, overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events that had begun with nothing more than sharing a sandwich. She reflected on her own modest life, her challenges balancing work and school, her small apartment, and her uncertain future. And yet in that moment, she realized that a single act of kindness had created a bridge into a world she could never have accessed otherwise. As the conversation continued, Robert shared stories about Lily, her interests, her dreams, and the importance of nurturing her in a world that often demanded resilience. And Mia found herself laughing at Lily's innocent jokes, offering suggestions for creative projects, and feeling a sense of purpose that had been absent from her life for far too long. The morning passed quickly, filled with small gestures, shared stories, and the quiet understanding that Mia's compassion had made a lasting impression. And as she prepared to leave the cafe for her shift, Robert assured her that he would follow up with opportunities to help both Lily and her, planting the seed of a connection that promised growth, change, and perhaps even friendship. And Mia stepped out into the sunlit streets once again, her heart lighter, her mind buzzing with possibilities, and a renewed sense of hope that the smallest acts could indeed ripple into monumental changes. Later that week, Mia Reynolds found herself walking toward the towering glass building of Ellison Enterprises, her heart beating faster with every step, a mix of anticipation and nervous energy coursing through her. She had received a call from Robert Ellison, the father of the little girl she had helped, inviting her to tour the foundation he managed, an opportunity she never could have imagined for herself. And the air was crisp and cool, carrying the distant sounds of city traffic and the soft chatter of pedestrians. A normal day in Chicago transformed into something extraordinary by her simple act of kindness. As she entered the lobby, the polished marble floors gleamed under the soft lights, and she could not help but notice the contrast between this world of wealth and the small, modest cafe where she had first met Lily, a reminder of how far her life might unexpectedly stretch. Robert met her near the elevators, his tailored suit impeccable, yet his demeanor calm and approachable, and he welcomed her with a warm handshake and a sincere smile that immediately put her at ease. They rode the elevator to the 21st floor, and Mia stole glances at the skyline through the expansive windows, feeling a sense of awe and disbelief, imagining that just a few days ago she had been crouched on a sidewalk, offering half of her lunch to a small, shivering child. Stepping off the elevator, they entered a bright, airy room filled with sunlight, creative energy, and the quiet hum of staff working on various community projects. And Robert introduced Mia to several team members, explaining that they were focused on educational initiatives, after-school programs, and outreach efforts for children in need. And Mia felt her chest swell with purpose, as she realized that her presence here was already meaningful. Robert guided her to a table where papers, colorful markers, and small notebooks were scattered, and he invited her to help plan a community event for local children, a role that seemed impossible just a week ago, yet now felt both natural and exciting, and Mia eagerly accepted, feeling the first real sense of empowerment in a long time. As they worked together, Robert shared stories about Lily, her courage in school, her dreams of becoming an artist, and how much he wanted to ensure that no child ever felt alone or unsupported. And Mia found herself offering ideas, sketching decorations, and discussing ways to make the event interactive and inclusive, her energy infectious and drawing smiles from everyone in the room. At one point, Lily arrived, running through the doorway with a backpack bouncing on her shoulders, and her eyes lit up when she saw Mia, rushing over to hug her. And Mia felt a surge of joy and warmth, recognizing the bond that had formed in such a short time, the connection of trust, kindness, and shared humanity transcending wealth or status. Robert observed quietly from nearby, his eyes reflecting pride and gratitude, and he gently reminded Mia that her influence on Lily and other children was already invaluable, that small acts, creativity, and genuine attention could ripple outward in ways that transformed lives, and Mia absorbed every word, feeling the weight of responsibility but also the thrill of opportunity. The afternoon passed in a whirlwind of planning, laughter, and collaboration, with Mia and Lily sharing sketches and brainstorming ideas, and Mia could not stop smiling, realizing that her world had expanded in ways she had never anticipated, and that a simple gesture of compassion had unlocked doors to a life filled with connection, purpose, and unexpected possibilities. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm golden glow across the office, Mia packed up her notebook and pens, exchanged heartfelt goodbyes with Lily, and walked toward the elevator with Robert, feeling a quiet confidence and renewed sense of self, knowing that this was only the beginning of a journey in which her kindness, creativity, and courage would continue to shape not only her own future but also the lives of those she touched. And as she stepped back into the bustling streets of Chicago, the city seemed brighter, fuller, and alive with potential, carrying with it the promise that simple human connection could create profound change. The following morning, Mia Reynolds awoke with a sense of anticipation that made it difficult to focus on her usual routine. The memory of yesterday's planning session at the foundation with Robert Ellison and Lily replayed vividly in her mind, the laughter of the children, the vibrant sketches spread across the table, and the warmth in Lily's eyes lingering as she made breakfast and packed her bag for the cafe shift, feeling an unfamiliar excitement for what the day might bring. Stepping out into the cool morning air, she noticed how the sunlight reflected off the wet pavement, and the city seemed to hum with possibility, each passerby carrying their own stories. And yet Mia's thoughts remained anchored on the little girl whose simple need had changed the trajectory of her life. Arriving at the cafe, she was greeted by the familiar clatter of dishes, the aroma of brewed coffee, and the soft murmur of early customers. Yet her eyes scanned for any sign of Lily or Robert, as if expecting another surprise visit, and she felt a flutter of nerves mingled with hope. Shortly after opening, the bell above the door rang, and Mia looked up to see Lily darting inside, backpack bouncing and cheeks flushed with excitement, her small hands clutching a bundle of colorful flyers for the upcoming community event, and Mia's heart warmed as the child ran toward her, breathless with anticipation, eager to share the progress she had made with Robert's encouragement and guidance. Robert followed moments later, his tailored suit and calm demeanor lending a sense of order and reassurance, and he smiled as he observed Mia interacting with Lily, his eyes reflecting pride and gratitude for her willingness to step into a world she had never expected to touch, a world of influence, compassion, and responsibility. He invited Mia to sit at a nearby table, and together they reviewed the plans for the charity event, discussing schedules, volunteer assignments, and creative ideas to engage the children. And Mia found herself contributing insights she had never imagined offering, her confidence growing with each suggestion, and the warm approval from Robert affirming that her ideas were valued. As they talked, Lily shared her own excitement about drawing banners, creating activity stations, and personally welcoming children to the event, and Mia encouraged her, praising her initiative and attention to detail. Realizing that her role was no longer just a passive observer but an active participant shaping meaningful experiences for others, the satisfaction of contributing to something larger than herself, filling her with a sense of purpose she had longed for. The morning evolved into a whirlwind of preparation, with Mia helping organize supplies, label materials, and coordinate volunteers, the sounds of laughter and chatter, creating an atmosphere of energy and optimism that seemed to echo beyond the walls of the foundation. And she felt the weight of her previous struggles diminish, replaced by a sense of belonging and accomplishment. As the sun climbed higher, casting a bright glow over the bustling office, Robert shared stories of his own experiences. emphasizing the importance of giving back, fostering community, and recognizing the impact small acts of kindness can have, and Mia absorbed every word, understanding that her initial gesture had set off a chain of events far greater than she had anticipated, and that her compassion, though simple, had been noticed and nurtured by those who valued integrity and heart. By the time Mia left the foundation to begin her evening shift at the cafe, she felt transformed, carrying with her not only the satisfaction of her contribution, but also a renewed sense of hope and possibility, knowing that her life, shaped by small acts of generosity, had intertwined with another story, one of wealth, influence, and genuine human connection. And as she walked through the lively streets of Chicago, the city around her felt brighter, the future full of potential, and the reminder that even the smallest act of kindness can ripple outward to change lives, including her own. Later that afternoon, Mia Reynolds found herself walking back to the foundation with a mixture of curiosity and nervous anticipation, her steps quick on the bustling Chicago sidewalks, as the sunlight bounced off the towering buildings and cast long shadows across the streets. The air was crisp and carried the faint scent of roasted coffee beans from nearby cafes, mingling with the distant honk of traffic and chatter of pedestrians, a familiar urban symphony that grounded her even as her mind raced with thoughts of the events that had unfolded since she first offered her sandwich to Lily. As she entered the foundation, she was greeted by the lively energy of volunteers, setting up tables, arranging supplies, and decorating the space with colorful banners and handmade signs. And Mia immediately felt a sense of belonging and purpose, knowing that her presence contributed to something meaningful. Robert Ellison was already there, reviewing the schedule and coordinating volunteers with a calm and authoritative demeanor, yet his eyes lit up when he saw Mia approaching, and he waved her over with a warm smile, acknowledging the vital role she had played in inspiring Lily and bringing a fresh perspective to the event planning. Mia set down her bag and joined Robert and Lily at a large table covered with art supplies, discussing the layout for activity stations and signage, and she found herself suggesting creative ideas for interactive games, educational workshops, and small art projects that would engage the children attending, her confidence growing as Robert nodded in agreement, appreciating her insight and commitment. Lily bounced excitedly in her chair, her small hands busy drawing a welcome sign and planning a scavenger hunt, her enthusiasm contagious, and Mia felt a surge of pride and connection as she watched the little girl take ownership of the project. Realizing that her own simple act of kindness had helped nurture this sense of empowerment and creativity in Lily. As the hours passed, Mia and Robert walked through each section of the venue, checking decorations, confirming volunteer assignments, and ensuring that each detail was accounted for, their conversation weaving between logistical planning and stories of Lily's progress, highlighting how the little girl's confidence and curiosity had blossomed under attentive guidance, and Mia felt deeply moved by the transformation she witnessed, knowing that the chain of influence began with the small gesture she had made days before. Outside, the afternoon sunlight filtered through the tall windows, casting a golden glow across the room, and illuminating the laughter of volunteers and children alike as they prepared for the event, creating an atmosphere of warmth, hope, and anticipation. And Mia could not help but smile, imagining the joy these activities would bring to the young participants, and the lasting impression it might leave on their lives. Robert paused for a moment, placing a hand on Mia's shoulder, and spoke with quiet sincerity about how her compassion, willingness to help, and creative input had exceeded expectations, that her engagement had set an example not only for Lily, but for everyone involved, and Mia felt a mixture of humility, gratitude, and quiet astonishment, recognizing that her life had shifted in ways she had never foreseen, all from a single decision to share her sandwich with a child in need. As they finalized the last details and stepped back to observe the progress, Mia looked at Lily, laughing and chatting with volunteers, and saw the embodiment of potential, joy, and trust, and she felt a profound connection to both the child and the father, understanding that her actions had created ripples that extended beyond herself, altering the course of more than one life in meaningful ways. The sun began to set, bathing the room in a soft orange light, and Mia, taking a deep breath, felt a sense of fulfillment, anticipation, and readiness for the day of the event, knowing that the kindness she had shown was returning to her manifold through relationships, purpose, and the tangible difference she was helping to make in the lives of children. And as she prepared to leave for her evening shift, she carried with her the knowledge that the smallest gestures can spark profound transformations, shaping destinies and connecting hearts across the unlikeliest of circumstances. As the day of the community event approached, Mia Reynolds felt a mix of excitement and apprehension swirling within her. The sun had just risen over Chicago, casting a warm golden glow over the streets and reflecting off the puddles from the previous evening's rain, and she walked briskly toward the foundation, clutching her notebook filled with sketches, schedules, and lists, her mind rehearsing every detail to ensure that the day would run smoothly. The foundation was already alive with activity, volunteers arranging tables, hanging colorful banners, and setting up activity stations, the laughter of children echoing through the open space as they practiced songs and games. And Mia felt a surge of pride and responsibility knowing that her contributions had helped shape this event from the ground up. Robert Ellison was coordinating the staff with calm precision, his presence commanding yet warm, and he greeted Mia with a nod and a reassuring smile, acknowledging the hours of effort she had poured into the planning. And she felt a mixture of humility and exhilaration, understanding that the stakes were higher than ever, not because of pressure from wealth or status, but because of the children whose joy and safety depended on the seamless execution of the event. Lily, bouncing in place with uncontained enthusiasm, approached Mia, clutching a stack of hand-painted signs and small gift bags, and Mia knelt to speak with her at eye level, offering encouragement and gentle reminders, feeling the weight of mentorship alongside the warmth of genuine affection, and she marveled at how quickly the little girl had grown in confidence, inspired by kindness, guidance, and opportunity. As the event officially began, families began arriving, the chatter of parents and children filling the air. And Mia moved from station to station, helping children with craft projects, directing volunteers, and offering support wherever needed, all while keeping an eye on Lily and Robert, observing the seamless collaboration that had sprung from an unlikely chain of events initiated by her simple act of sharing a sandwich. Midway through the morning, a small mishap occurred when a display of art supplies tipped over, sending paints and paper sprawling across the floor, and Mia instinctively rushed to help, coordinating volunteers to clean up, calming the children, and restoring order with a composed authority that drew surprised and appreciative glances from those around her, including Robert, whose eyes reflected pride and admiration, silently acknowledging her ability to handle challenges gracefully and effectively under pressure. As the afternoon progressed, the event reached its peak, with children laughing, engaging in games, and proudly showing off the crafts they had created, and Mia walked among them, offering smiles, encouragement, and guidance, feeling an overwhelming sense of fulfillment and connection, recognizing that the culmination of effort, kindness, and teamwork had created a tangible impact in the lives of the children present. Robert approached Mia quietly during a brief pause, his expression soft and sincere, and thanked her for her dedication, explaining that her presence and initiative had not only inspired Lily, but had set an example for all the volunteers and staff, reinforcing the notion that small acts of generosity and courage could resonate far beyond initial expectations. And Mia felt a rush of gratitude, humility, and joy, knowing that she had played a meaningful role in this transformative experience. As the sun began to dip lower, casting warm, amber light across the foundation's space, Mia watched the final moments unfold, children hugging their parents, volunteers exchanging congratulations, and Lily beaming with pride and happiness. And she realized that the challenges she had faced in her own life, the uncertainties, the long hours, and the modest means had all led her to this exact point, a moment where her compassion and courage had rippled outward to create joy, connection, and hope for others. And as she stepped back to observe, taking in the smiling faces, the laughter, and the vibrant energy, she felt a profound sense of purpose and the quiet understanding that acts of kindness, no matter how small, can ignite meaningful change and transform lives. After the community event concluded, Mia Reynolds lingered in the foundation, watching volunteers pack up supplies and children wave goodbye to their parents, a sense of quiet satisfaction settling over her as the sunlight streamed through the large windows, casting long shadows and bathing the space in a warm, golden glow. She reflected on the journey from the simple act of sharing her sandwich with Lily to this vibrant scene of laughter, creativity, and connection, understanding that her kindness had set off a chain of events far greater than she could have imagined, and feeling a profound sense of fulfillment that came not from recognition or reward, but from witnessing the tangible impact of compassion and care. Robert Ellison approached, his expression a mixture of gratitude and admiration, and he gently placed a hand on Mia's shoulder, acknowledging her role in inspiring Lily, supporting the volunteers, and ensuring the success of the event. And Mia felt a wave of humility and pride, recognizing that her involvement had transformed not only the lives of those present, but also her own perspective on purpose and potential. He invited her to sit for a moment with Lily, who was drawing the last of her thank you cards for the volunteers, her small hands working diligently and her eyes bright with excitement, and Mia knelt beside her, offering encouragement and praise, feeling the warmth of connection and the depth of trust that had formed between them in such a short span of time. Robert then shared that he had a small surprise planned to honor Mia's contribution, something to recognize her selflessness and initiative. And Mia's curiosity piqued, though she tried to hide her anticipation, feeling both nervous and excited about what might unfold. As the foundation's staff and volunteers gathered around, Robert invited Mia to the center of the room, and with a warm smile, he announced a small exhibition of artwork created by the children during the event, highlighting Mia's guidance and support in organizing the activities, and he revealed a special plaque that read, "In recognition of Mia Reynolds, inspiring kindness and creativity," a gesture that brought tears to her eyes and filled the room with applause and cheers, the acknowledgement of her efforts resonating deeply and validating the impact of her actions. Lily ran up to her, wrapping her arms around Mia's waist and whispering a heartfelt "thank you" into her ear, and Mia felt her heart swell with emotion, realizing that this tangible moment of recognition, while touching, paled in comparison to the joy, trust, and growth she had witnessed in the children, and in Lily specifically, whose confidence and happiness had flourished under her care and encouragement. Robert then spoke privately with Mia, expressing that her influence had extended beyond the event itself, inspiring a renewed focus on community outreach, volunteer engagement, and mentorship within the foundation. And he invited her to continue participating in future programs, offering guidance and support in planning, coordination, and creative development. And Mia, filled with gratitude and a sense of purpose, accepted, understanding that her life had irrevocably intertwined with this foundation, Lily, and Robert, and that the ripple effects of her kindness would continue to spread and grow. As the sun dipped lower, casting a soft, amber light across the room, Mia took a moment to herself, breathing in the quiet hum of the space, reflecting on the journey from a small act of generosity on a city sidewalk to the creation of meaningful experiences, connections, and opportunities. And she understood that true impact came not from wealth or status, but from courage, empathy, and the willingness to act with an open heart. And she felt a renewed commitment to live with intention, knowing that her actions, however simple, could change lives and forge connections that endured far beyond a single day. Weeks later, Mia Reynolds stood at the entrance of the foundation, the crisp morning air carrying the sounds of the city as she prepared for another day of planning and mentoring. Yet there was a quiet excitement in her chest that made her steps lighter, a sense of anticipation for the meaningful interactions she would witness and contribute to. The foundation was alive with energy, children laughing as they arrived, volunteers greeting one another, and the soft hum of conversations and creative activity filling the space. And Mia felt a profound connection to this place that had become much more than a temporary engagement. It had become a part of her life, intertwined with purpose, compassion, and opportunity. Robert Ellison approached from across the room, his expression warm and welcoming, and he handed Mia a small envelope with a note inside, the edges of the paper decorated with Lily's colorful drawings, and she opened it to find an invitation to a special evening event at the foundation celebrating the impact of volunteers and supporters, a gesture that immediately brought a sense of honor and humility, recognizing the role she had played in inspiring, guiding, and shaping the experience for the children. As the day progressed, Mia assisted with final preparations, checking activity stations, organizing materials, and offering support to volunteers, all while keeping an eye on Lily, whose energy and enthusiasm seemed boundless, and she marveled at how much the little girl had grown in confidence, initiative, and creativity, a transformation that stemmed from the encouragement, guidance, and opportunities provided in the wake of her initial act of kindness. Evening approached, and the foundation's main hall was filled with warm lighting, vibrant decorations, and the gentle murmur of guests arriving for the celebration, the atmosphere a blend of anticipation, pride, and joyful reflection. And Mia felt a mixture of awe and nervous excitement, realizing that her journey from a small gesture on a city sidewalk to this moment of recognition had been extraordinary, unexpected, and deeply moving. Robert took Mia aside as the event commenced, expressing his gratitude in a quiet, sincere tone, recounting how her willingness to act with empathy, generosity, and creativity had directly influenced Lily, the volunteers, and the success of multiple programs, and Mia felt a swell of emotion, the validation of her actions mingling with the joy of seeing tangible change in the lives she had touched. The event began in earnest, with speeches highlighting the contributions of volunteers, presentations showing the impact of community projects, and stories shared by children and families whose lives had been enriched by the Foundation's efforts, and Mia observed with a sense of quiet pride, understanding that her role, though initially humble, had become a vital part of the narrative, bridging gaps, creating trust, and inspiring others to act with kindness and courage. Toward the end of the evening, Robert led Mia and Lily to a small stage, where he publicly acknowledged Mia's contributions, presenting her with a plaque engraved with her name and a message of gratitude for her compassion and dedication. And as the applause resonated through the hall, Mia felt tears of joy and disbelief, the culmination of weeks of connection, effort, and heartfelt action, manifesting in a tangible expression of recognition and appreciation. Lily ran to hug her, whispering a sincere and heartfelt thank you that encapsulated the bond they had formed, and Mia hugged her back tightly, overwhelmed with emotion, realizing that the journey had not only changed the lives of those around her but had transformed her own sense of purpose, confidence, and understanding of the ripple effect that simple acts of kindness can create. As the evening drew to a close, Mia walked out into the cool Chicago night with Robert and Lily by her side, the city lights sparkling against the dark sky, and she reflected on the extraordinary journey from sharing a sandwich with a little girl to becoming an integral part of a community, a story of empathy, connection, and transformation that underscored the power of compassion, the unexpected rewards of selfless action, and the enduring truth that even the smallest gestures can ignite profound and lasting change in the lives of others and in one's own life.